Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology. This is a space where we seek to create and cultivate healthy conversations between those things we geek out on and the philosophical and theological questions that often arise out of our fandoms. Like, what does it mean to be human? What makes a hero? What makes a villain? How do the stories and narratives we geek out on shape how we live in the world? We are your priest to the geeks. We aren't all ordained, but we see ourselves as mediators at the intersection of geek culture and going deeper in our faith. We don't always have to agree, but we do respect each other, and we see everyone as a beloved child of God. Everyone geeks out on something, so come geek out with us and enjoy the show.
You're listening to an Anazao Ministries podcast.
Hey friends, I am super excited to go live here on YouTube and a little bit later on down the road on your podcast feed to talk about a surprise movie in my book, Godzilla Minus One. So yes, if you're with us on YouTube, smash that like button, hit subscribe, share with a friend. If you're listening to your earbuds, be careful. Every now and then there might be a Godzilla roar, so don't have your earbuds turned up too loud, or we may get sued for hurting your eardrum. No, that probably won't happen. But hey, we're here to talk about a fabulous movie. I cannot wait to talk about this. We have to talk about this movie, Godzilla Minus One. And a friend of mine, Trip Fuller, friend of the show, texted a group of us hosts and said, hey, I just saw Godzilla Minus One with my son, and we just talked about it for an hour in my car and teared up talking about it, and you have to talk about this movie. And I had friends tell me I need to go see this movie. I was like, yeah, I'll get to it one of these days. But when Trip said, you guys need to talk about it on Systematic Geekology, now it's time to get real and talk about it on Systematic Geekology and talk about this movie. We're not going to bury the lead. My co-host today, my fellow kaiju monsters are, we all love it. And so there's going to be lots of spoilers. We're going to talk about this movie in and through and out and in depth. We're going to go deep with this one. And so if you haven't seen the movie, pause it, go see the movie, come back, listen to the rest of this episode. And so without further ado, I'm going to invite some friends on this. I can't do this show alone. So I'm going to bring some friends along, and we're going to talk about Godzilla. So here we go. There he is. There he is. Kaiju Monster number one. Kevin, how are you doing? What's happening today on this cold Sunday afternoon?
I'm doing great. This is by far like the best sound effects we've had on the show before. And I think this should be like our new call, like every time we start an episode, just because let's have a Godzilla roar. But
it's definitely,
man, I'm doing,
yeah. So you're doing good. You're staying warm.
I'm doing well. I haven't been inside all weekend, so it's, just hunkering down, but plenty to geek out on, and happy to do that. I'm excited for this one today.
All right. So as you said, we're going to have to do some more Godzilla roars. Here we go. There he is, another kaiju monster. There he is. Christian, how are you doing today? What's happening in your world?
It's a nice lazy Sunday, Will. It snowed up here in Louisville. I'm back in seminary. I'm enjoying the snow and just relaxing.
Relaxing and talking about Godzilla. That's what we're going to do.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. I just came out of the snow, took our youth skiing on their youth ski trip. I came back a little early because I had to preach this morning. I got the irony that I got more snow here in North Carolina than I did in Utah when I went out to Utah to chase snow for a bigger ski resort. But I got more snow here in North Carolina doing this ski trip than any other. So, but glad to be warm here to talk with you guys. Let's go around the horn and talk about what we've been geeking out on. That's what we do here at Systematic Geekology. Christian, what have you been geeking out on lately?
I'm now into Kingdom Hearts 3, and I just got to the Big Hero 6 world and loving it, man.
All right. Kingdom Hearts. Here we go. All right. I got my Diet Mountain Dew, drinking game. It's a Sunday afternoon, so don't have too much. I guess that's just Joshua, but it has been going around a lot. That's good. All right. Kingdom Hearts. Chris, Kevin, what are you geeking out on?
You guys are going to laugh, but it's 2024, and for the first time, I'm watching Smallville. So I started from the beginning a few weeks ago. So I'm almost through season 1. It's one of those shows, like, I knew I would like it, and I remember, like, when I was a kid, it was on, but I was at that time obsessed with the DC animated universe. Yeah. And honestly, watching it as an adult is kind of more fun because, again, it premiered in, like, 2001. So I was early elementary school. Watching a high school coming of age like a series, I think is just more meaningful to me now. And especially being able to look at it retroactively and look at TV of that era, look at how it, reinvents the Superman mythos. So I very much enjoy it. I mean, it's got plenty of its flaws, but the first season has been, what I've liked most about it is that a lot of the episodes are like a combination of B horror movie with high school melodrama. They have a freak of the week, like villain scenario, and they have these really outlandish stories that, culminate well with the high school soap opera stuff. So it's a lot of fun. And I mean, my favorite part is just seeing Clark and Lex, as like, good friends initially, and how that dynamic plays out. Michael Rosenbaum is great as Lex. So that's what I've been doing. That's really what I've been doing a lot outside of like comics and stuff. I've been doing like at least an episode or two a night, during the week.
I love that because I was I probably would have been your youth pastor at the time when you were watching this show, Kevin, because I was watching this and I moved down to Florida, young family. I was this is before the streaming stuff going on. Like Smallville, that was weekly appointment television for me because it was coming off the X-Files of the 90s and the Monster of the Week, and it kind of Smallville paved the way for the CW DC universe, all that stuff. So yeah, I definitely you're right. This should be a Systematic Geekology episode all by itself around Smallville and the portrayal of Superman and walking through. I really did like that show. I am, of course, all shows kind of sometimes wear out their welcome there. It gets to the end, and try to figure out what it was going to do, how you age these people up. Man, what a good show. See, you lured me to talk about it more than just a quick geeking out. That always happens on the show. I'll share where I'm geeking out. I'm geeking out on a new comic book that dropped this week, an issue #1 called Avengers Twilight. Did not know this was coming. Chip Zdarsky, I think I'm saying that right, and Daniel Acuna, and fantastic creative team. And think of Captain America in the twilight of his career. Like the super soldier serum has run throughout his body. He's an old man. Think of it, Dark Knight Returns, think of Kingdom Come. He's there at the end. He's watched the world kind of 30 years into the future, who everybody's still staring at their screens. You have a son of Tony Stark and the Wasp actually out there running the show. And think of Dark Knight and Judge Dredd and all that stuff all together into one. It is a fantastic first year. I cannot wait to see. Christian, did you pick that one up and read it?
I have. I enjoyed the first issue immensely.
Yeah. Kevin, how about you? Have you heard about this? Is it in your pool yet?
I'll have to check it out. I also I went last week to pick up Ultimate Spider-Man and it was already sold out. So now they restocked, but so I might pick this one up when I get that one.
Yeah, that's good stuff. All right. Well, time to talk about the main event today. Yeah, there you go. So, guys, we're spoilers. Also, we're not going to bury the lead. We love this movie. We're going to gush all over it. We're going to love all over it. So that's no surprise. But before we start talking about the movie, I do want to just talk a little bit. What's our experience with the Godzilla franchise? It's been around a long time. This particular movie is set in the 1940s because it's been a long time that Godzilla has been a part of the ethos and mythology of the East and also Western culture as well. So, Christian, we'll start with you in terms of, what was your experience with the Godzilla franchise? Is this something new to you, or is this something that's always been a part of your fandom and geekdom?
This has been one that's always been a part. My dad raised me on these. As soon as the VHSs would come in, he'd get the bootleg copies from Comic Cons and stuff like that. When we had the subtitle version only, and eventually we got some dubs along the way. I love Godzilla. Like I shared on the I think it was the Charlie Brown episode we did, or maybe the one before that. Yeah. For the holiday specials for Christmas, that. One of the best presents I ever got was a giant Godzilla that exists to this day. It was giant to me back then. It's a toy right now that is still in use by the kids my mom watches. So I love Godzilla.
Yeah. Cool. Kevin, how about you? What's your experience with the Godzilla franchise?
So I'm the opposite in that I have very limited exposure to that. I mean, like, I always knew Godzilla was a thing, but like, as far as the old movies, I mean, like, my dad loves like the original. I may have seen it at some point, but not really remember. And I think I had a Godzilla toy when I was younger. And then with the new ones, like, I've seen the new American, like the one with Bryan Cranston, where he's in it for 10 minutes. And then King of the Monsters. I thought both those movies were terrible. And the only ones like I've always been more of a King Kong fan. So like I love the original King Kong. I love the Peter Jackson one. And then out of those, like the kind of like, I don't know what universe, but the Monsters universe with Godzilla, King of the Monsters, Kong Skull Island, and then Godzilla versus Kong. The only one of those movies that I really like is Kong Skull Island. So that was the thing. So Godzilla was never, nothing against it, but I just had like more limited exposure. And then when this movie dropped, like I didn't know about it until the week it came out, and I just heard everyone raving about it. I was like, yeah, I gotta make plans to see it. And then I didn't get it to it until later in the toward the tail end of 2023. Went with one of my pastors who also had very limited knowledge, and yeah, we'll get into it, but we both loved it. But no, I came in. That was the guy. I know a lot of people are huge Godzilla fans. It was not one of my like big fandoms growing up by any means. But I always knew it was a big like. I think Pacific Rim is like the best Godzilla movie I've seen in the last like before this. Like that's basically as far as kaiju movies. Yeah, I
need to go back and rewatch it. So you're saying you saw -1 with one of your pastors?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we'll get into that. That's fun. So yeah, for myself, I grew up on a barrier island, the south end of Riceville Beach. And I don't know what came first, my nightmares or watching Godzilla or watching the cartoon or something. But I would have dreams as a little kid that monsters would come out of the ocean behind our house and walk through our neighborhood, like looking into homes and stuff. So I don't know if it was just that's a universal human nightmare, or if for some reason that was a dream I had as a little kid. And a big part of in the ocean, I could hear when the ocean got rough, I could hear the buoy off the sea, off the jetty, making this kind of hum noise. And you knew there was something going on out in the water. So when I was little, that kind of freaked me out. I was like, what is this noise I hear coming from the ocean? That's almost like this haunting groaning from the ocean. Eventually, I got a little older. I knew that means there are going to be good waves the next day. So I loved hearing that groaning or the buoy hopping up and down. So in the movie, when the buoys start going off and they're reading the buoys, I was like, yes, that's my dream. Yes, that's a surfer's, not nightmare, but dream that the waves are big. Here comes whatever. So that was kind of me when I was little. But I do remember, of course, seeing the movies on some channel on Sunday afternoons or Saturdays or whatever. They would play those kind of cult classic monster movies and watch some Godzilla. And then they had a Saturday morning cartoon at some point, and then Marvel had the rights for
Hanna-Barbera.
Hanna-Barbera. They had some of those cartoons. So I've always it wasn't one of my biggest fandoms of all time, but I definitely liked it. And I do like the monster. I do like the monster of the week. I list this kind of evolution of Godzilla as a monster that you don't know if they're a hero or a villain, or they came to bring balance to the world order. Yeah, it's destruction. It's not worried about the common human underneath its foot, but it's just trying to bring balance to what was unbalanced and disharmony in the universe. So that kind of plot thread that's been a part of the movies as of late, not necessarily part of -1, but that's something that intrigues me as Monster Island. I like King Kong too. I like all the big monsters. I want to see how they fight, what happens. A new comic book that's out there, Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong, is pretty good, merging these universes together because they're hot properties. So yeah, that's kind of my experience with it. And with this movie, we'll move on to kind of what lured us to see this movie. It was definitely on my radar. There's, whatever's coming out of Japan or the East of new Godzilla movies, and you have movies in the West of this kind of the Kong versus Godzilla. But the ones that are subtitled out from the East, they don't necessarily hit my my movie theaters. And when they do, I'm kind of like, all right, who is this? What is this about? But I definitely had friends that had seen this. You know what this means? Oh gosh, kaiju monster.
Time for some bad opinions.
There it is. So yeah, here comes Joshua, another kaiju monster. I don't know if he's a hero or villain. Is he come to bring balance to the universe, harmony to this episode, or is he just going to smash us and not care who's under his feet? I'm just
trying to think.
Destroy you.
What's the worst opinion that I can share today? You know, that's what I'm here for.
Well, we've already spoiled that we all love this movie, so you're going to have to say that, because if not, then you're just lying to the people. Nope. Save it, Joshua. Hold your breath.
I can't think of anything bad yet. Give me time.
We're just talking about what lures to me. I was saying that, I like Godzilla. I go to the movies, the big ones, the blockbusters that are out of Western studios. I'll do it. But this one, I heard about Minus One, the poster of, and we've shared it online, of the monster head chasing this boat, like looks like Jaws coming out of the water, is scary as all get out. And I was like, I want to see that movie, and had friends suggest it. And as I shared, Trip was like, are you going to do an episode on this? And we were like, I guess we should. So I'm going to go. I went to see the movie by myself, and it was incredible. I was blown away by it. So that's what did it. Kevin, what lured you to this movie to go see it? You said you went to go see it with your pastor, and I'm pretty proud of that. So what lured you to the movie?
Yeah, it was kind of word of mouth, and like I remember, because it came to the US, I want to say November-ish, something like that. And like I said earlier, I only heard about it the week it came out, and then people were saying how good it was. So I'm like, yeah, I'll definitely check it out. I was like, but there was, like you said, there was a bunch of others that I had to see first. So, like a lot of the like Oscar bait kind of stuff coming around the holidays, and then like the new Hayao Miyazaki movie, The Boy and the Heron, which is excellent. So stuff like that. And then it got to be the holidays, and I was making my top 10 of the year list, and I posted it on social media, and people were like, wait, where's Godzilla? Have you not seen it? I was like, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to. And I just was waiting for a chance to see it. And then, it was like the Saturday right before New Year's. I texted like one of my pastors who we play a Star Wars RPG together in a group from church. Like, he's a huge nerd. And I was like, okay, have you seen it? Yeah. He's like, no, but I want to. So we just went and saw it that day. And it was really cool too, because it was at a theater that's not usually terribly populated. And it had been out for over a month, and there was still a decent crowd there at the theater. So he was also one a huge nerd as well, but also had a very limited Godzilla knowledge. And we were both talking before, and we're like, do you know if you need to know anything before? Is this connected to anything? And
right.
And everything I had heard was it's pretty standalone, and you really don't have to have any background. And that is very much true. So that was really just what lured it, was word of mouth. And like, I had not heard anyone not only not say a bad thing about it, but people were putting it on their top 10 or even favorite movie of the year list. I was like, all right, I got to see it. And I'm so glad I did.
Yeah, I love it that it didn't make your top 10 list, and people are like, are you crazy? Have you not seen this yet? That was kind of my thing too. I listened to Fat Man Beyond with Kevin Smith and Mark Bernardin, and that was like his number one movie of the year. And when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, all right, man, the urgency was there. So good stuff. And
are they talking about like top 10 for the year, or are they talking about just like top 10 in general?
Top 10 for the year.
Top 10 for the year, yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't even know if I saw 10 new movies last year.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess it's streaming or theaters. It could be both. Okay. Christian, how about you? What lured you to see Minus One, other than the Systematic Geekology chat?
Yeah. I was aware of this coming out, but I very rarely see something in a theater unless I go out with my dad or brother. But there was one guy I know here. He doesn't have many friends, and I felt sad for him because he asked me to go with him. You might know him. His name's Joshua. And we went to the movie together and had a blast. I love this film so much. It is hard for me to restrain myself to talk about all the things I want to talk about yet, because I want to give other people the chance to talk.
Yeah. I was going to give that a Godzilla roar for just a burn, but I think that's okay. We'll have if I had a radiation like zap, I would have done that. I couldn't find anything, but this movie is a lot about friends and community and family. So I'm glad you took somebody who needed some family and to put under their wing and draw them along. So, Josh, who did you see this movie with, and who brought you to see the movie? What lured you to see the movie?
Yeah, I was really excited. I had a friend who is in seminary now, who was in town, and we used to go to college together. And I was like, oh man, it would be so cool if we could hang out. And I've got to the point where I don't see a ton of movies in theaters. Obviously, I haven't seen 10, but I was I don't know, something like Godzilla. I'm like, that's one of those, you got to see it on the big screen. You have to have that surround sound, the giant monster crushing stuff.
True. That's true. I had to get you an air horn. You have to see it on the big screen.
Oh, okay. But I was just so excited, and I was like, I'm going to see it with my good friend from college. And it was so funny because at the end, we watched this, and he's looking over at me, and he goes, I thought we were just going to watch some monsters shoot stuff. That was actual art. And I'm like, yeah, that was cinema. That was true cinema. We were almost speechless until he spoke up and said, it's a good thing we do a podcast together. I said, yeah, it is.
Was that Mr. Ashley?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. All right. Now I'm making some connections. Kevin and I live in relatively close quarters. We need to see a movie together, and then we can bond. We will make that happen soon this winter, my friend.
Well, I was just about to say, like, opposite of these guys, I went to the theater. I think it was either 54 or 55 times last year. I go all the time. So wow. I'll see anything on the big screen. But this especially, and like you guys said, we'll get more into the story and the themes, but the pastor friend I went to see this with, we had just finished that week making a list of books and movies from the year to present to the church about like spiritual themes in them and stuff like that. Oh, and then we had already posted it the day before, and then we saw this and we're like, whoa, we need this to add this. So like Wes made another Facebook post that as soon as we got out of the theater to say like, everyone go see this because there is so much like you said, this is not just a entertaining monster movie. This is a piece of just cinematic art.
Yeah, I used to, back when Movie Pass first came out, I would go 3 or 4 times a month. I'd see a lot more movies in, but my wife gets nauseous at the smell of popcorn. And it's just one of those, like, it feels weird going to hang out without your wife all the time. So, I don't need to go to the theater that bad.
Yeah, that's a good sacrifice.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Make sure you follow us on Instagram, catch us live at events we are holding or attending, get updates when we post new episodes of the podcast, see our other favorite content that we lift up and support, as well as just see our beautiful faces and engage with us through messages. Maybe watch a reel and give us the feedback of what you think of the show.
I was going to go down a road about popcorn. But,
I love popcorn.
Yeah, I do too. So let's talk about the movie itself. Like, what does minus one mean? I had to look it up, beforehand, and I was like, oh, and then I saw the movie, and so this movie is Godzilla Minus One. What does that mean, you ask? Well, think of yourself as the lowest of the low. You've hit rock bottom, and you don't think you can get any lower whatsoever. And then a kaiju monster, big lizard, comes out of the water and smashes you even lower. You're going to go into the negative level of how you're feeling and how your life is going. So that's what we think about Godzilla as. Think of hitting rock bottom, and then Godzilla shows up, and then you go even lower. So that's kind of what this movie was trying to say. It's set in context in the 1940s during World War II and post World War II. So it is a timepiece as well, and kind of sets in the historical context. Christian, you're kind of the master of the summary of movies and comic books and things. So do you mind giving like a 30-second to 1 minute kind of synopsis of this movie and kind of capture what's going on? Because it's not connected to Godzilla versus King Kong or Monster Island or bringing balance to a world that's overrun by other monsters. It's just Godzilla and this kamikaze pilot, a failed kamikaze pilot who has hit rock bottom.
Yeah, I'll do my best. So it starts at the end of World War II, where supposed to be kamikaze pilot Koichi lands on an island that Japan owns in the midst of this, and says he's having engine trouble, but really it's because he doesn't want to go through with it. They're attacked by a pre-atomic Godzilla who's just living in the area, and it wiped out except for him and one other guy who will show up later in the film. So he goes back home. Japan has lost the war. His house has been destroyed by American firebombing. His parents are dead. He ends up bonding with this young girl who adopted a kid. And they kind of bond together, become like this pseudo family unit. He gets a job as a minesweeper because there's a ton left behind from the war. That's when the Godzilla first starts appearing, wreaks havoc as he does. They try to distract him, fail miserably. I may be getting scenes out of order here, but He gets back on land. Noriko, the woman he's kind of gotten along with here, and him has gotten a new job. He tries to find her, save her. Godzilla attacks, devastates the city with his atomic breath. She pushes him out of the way and seemingly is killed in that blast. So he comes filled with revenge, feels like I'm going to have to do this on my own. Decides not to actually do it on his own, joins with the minesweeping crew he works with, and a lot of civilians in Japan who are very tired of the way the government handled things, very tired with the way the military handled things. They're going to make their own plan to kill Godzilla so he doesn't do this again. And in the process of this, he gets the guy, the engineer he met early on the island, to soup up a kamikaze plane for him to actually go inside of Godzilla and blow it up from the inside if this plan fails, where they're going to put him down in the ocean, hope the pressure kills him. If that doesn't work, lift him back up, and the pressure should kill him then too. Goes through this. They manage to trap Godzilla for a bit. The plan fails. The plan fails again. And right before he can die, he ejects out of the plane. We could talk about how that happens later on because it is foreshadowed quite well. Manages to survive. Godzilla is dead, seemingly, because, of course, this is Godzilla franchise. You got to make more movies later on. And he gets back to mainland Japan, reunites with Noriko, who has actually survived the blast, and he becomes a little family with her and a little girl they've adopted as their own. And oh no, Godzilla is still around. Oh
no. Yeah, there's something there. Nicely done. I think, there's different arguments around Godzilla. It's like people come to see Godzilla. Let's see monsters fight. Don't keep it like Jaws and keep them out of most of the movie. And then there's others like, no, it's a human story. It's about humans caught in between the military industrial complex. And it's about, fallout and grief from atomic bomb and nuclear war and those kinds of things. So I want more human drama. I think even though Godzilla may be in this movie like maybe 15 minutes, how they lure him and what they show of him around the human experience of what's going on here is absolutely brilliant. And it is a drama. It is about failure. It's about family. It's about relationships. It's about grief. It's about responsibility. And man, those human elements, like I can't relate to anyone who's gone through World War II. I can't relate between a soldier who is dishonored because they didn't step up to their responsibility. But I can relate to the human experience of longing for family and grief and losing those or love, or trying to find your way in this world, not feeling like you have purpose. And on those heartstrings, on those universal themes of the human condition, that is what drew you into this movie, this fascinating. Wherever you are in your life and whatever you're wrestling with, whatever monsters you feel like you have to face, this movie will draw you in and pull you into that. So I think, man, there's just so much there. Joshua and Kevin, is there something in there in the plot line there that perhaps Christian didn't highlight, or something you want to lift up to make sure we lift up before we get into kind of the major themes?
I would just say, I mentioned earlier that the only recent Godzilla movies I had seen were the American ones. And I think a big problem with those is a lot of it, it's also focused more on the human drama, but in both of the Godzilla and King of Monsters, the human drama and the human characters are so boring. It's just you just want God. That's why people complained. Is you wanted Godzilla to come out and just kill them all because they had some great actors, but they were so poorly written that I was bored out of my mind. It's the complete opposite here, where that's what draws you in. You have this great story of, like you said, a kamikaze pilot who is dealing with, his loss of identity and, feels the guilt of abandoning his post and what that means and, what heroism means. And we'll get into all of this, but that's what really drew me in. It was good human drama through and through. And not just with him, but with the whole ensemble. You had characters that were really likable, and you were rooting for them the whole time. And that, in turn, made you really see Godzilla as this massive threat and massive villain. And you wanted the humans to survive this time around.
You wanted the humans to survive. And, yeah, Joshua, what do you got there, in terms of the theme or plot that, before we get into the major themes?
So first, I guess my wrong opinion of this episode is I love the drama and the humans in the legendary monster movies.
Okay,
I enjoy it.
No. Okay,
don't you give him any ground, Kevin. Let him have his bad opinion.
Look, I don't enjoy it anywhere near as much, but I think it's because that's more of a political thriller. This was more of a philosophical drama. So there's different genres I would say. And I love political thrillers. I love political themes. I'm going to be on a lot of our political episodes this year because I just have fun with it. Captain America is my favorite for a reason.
Oh, there's an episode then. The political nature of the kaiju monsters. There you go. All right. Godzilla movies.
Well, we do have sometime this year. We're going to try and pull Nick back in so that him and TJ can talk about what if Godzilla attacked the town of South Park. So that'll be fun.
There you go.
That's when we'll get into our politics there. But I can't wait for that. That's going to be later in the year, but I'm so excited. Which I don't know if you guys know this, but the Legendary Monster Universe is the one that's currently crossing over with Justice League. Yeah, in the comics. So,
yeah. You've been here on time. You've been here on time.
Well, you know, I had stuff to do. I have to work, so I could afford to keep this podcast running.
More important than Godzilla.
If you want to help me keep the podcast running so I don't have to work so much, you can go over to patreon.com/systematic geekology or the shop. You could buy some. Someone just bought a shirt this morning. Might have been me. We'll see. No, I am off.
That was the roar of Joshua asking for help. Go for it, Joshua.
I love the theme, and I know you touched on a little bit of just the culture of being negligent towards life, and how it wasn't just a redemption story of our character; it was a redemption story of the culture, and that's something you don't see a lot of. And I loved that. I thought that was beautiful. That's what gets me excited when we're talking about this movie. It's just they built these planes for kamikaze. They didn't even have an idea of an ejection seat. And how does the movie end? They build in an ejection seat. I love it. I love it. It was great.
Yeah, and what was the phrase?
Really? Oh, go ahead. Well, sorry.
Yeah, it was just the phrase of live and survive, right? And so the whole movie is this character surviving and not knowing if he wished he survived or want to survive, what's going to keep him surviving or not, what's going to keep him going, where does he even find hope in this world? But I think the idea of like, hey, the concept and the shift is like, yeah, we're going to put an ejection seat here. You're going to survive. Live, look at this monster in the face, and despite everything, live, because you have something to live for. And eventually he gets to a point where he has something to live for in that family. But Kevin, what were you going to say about that?
I was going to say, like, Joshua, what you said, like, that's hard to do, to have both the character focus and then these cultural themes so naturally embedded together, because like you said, it goes from at the beginning when he is so, in this culture of, loyalty above everything to the government, and it is not really sure why he's doing, and that was the position a lot of soldiers were in, and then it gets to that middle point after Godzilla attacks Tokyo, and, here, and now the survivors are brought together because they genuinely want to help each other, and they want to help survive and preserve their people for future generations. And it's a really beautiful thing how that all came together in the story.
Yeah, well, it's brought up a lot of interesting questions for me that I've been doing a lot of research on, because I'm a weirdo. Because you're seeing the problem of how do we value life almost from the opposite position of what we see in America, right? In America, we're not usually talking about how do we value humans' life after they're born. We're usually talking about before they're born. Do we want them to be born at all? Like, that's where it's focused on. And in American churches and American culture, we're always focused on the individual, the person. Eastern culture is completely different. The whole idea is, of course, we would ignore the individual for the whole. And to see the redemption story being one where we have to challenge that narrative and maybe the individual does matter, well, that's weird for me, because I assume the individual matters here in Western culture. So that makes me kind of flip everything and wonder, well, for us, what does it look like, on this side of things where we overvalue the individual? You know what I mean? Like it's the opposite of that scene of Tony Stark and Steve Rogers where it's, oh, you would never lay on the wire. Why wouldn't I just cut the wire? It's the opposite of that. But they were talking about you would never make the sacrifice. Well, because in American culture, it's weird to make the sacrifice. In that culture, it's almost weird not to. And it makes me think, in the Christian culture here, we're our countercultural, we're going to be about sacrifice. We're going to be about this. What happens when the culture is about sacrifice? What does it mean to be countercultural then? Is the Christian narrative just about sacrificing, or is it about valuing life? Is it about something more? And that's something I find really interesting. So I'm curious how churches in the Eastern culture handle that in a world where it's not all individualized.
Yeah. Christian, thoughts on that? that nice little piece of reflection there on Joshua.
Oh, that was well stated. Because it's a general concept, especially in your Japanese society. It's like you work as a collective. Like everything goes towards the whole. Ignore yourself. Do everything to not be a factor. Like we see time and time again, in Japan, like the suicide rates are up, the depression rates are up, the fact that families aren't being built anymore are up because people are pursuing work instead of everything else, because you're supposed to be that cog in the machine. The cultural expectation is if you are not, then there's something wrong with you. You don't necessarily need to be eliminated or anything like that, but you're not helping, so no one's going to care about you as much versus someone who does what they're supposed to. And even then, you're not getting cared for because you're working yourself to the bone just for the sake of someone else or, the group as a whole. And, as from a more American idea, because why would I ever do that? Like, what about what I want? And both of those come with very negative things. It's like it can get to the point of pride. It's like, why would I ever care what anyone else thinks? Why don't I just get what's mine? And in this, like early on, like as soon as Koichi comes back to see his devastated house, there's this poor neighbor whose name escapes me at the moment, who has lost everything as well. And that he was a kamikaze pilot because she talked with his parents and somehow he gets to survive and her family didn't survive. You weren't working to what you were supposed to be doing. And because of you, we lost the war. And that's an irrational thing to say. But from the cultural context, you kind of understand, well, everyone assumed this is what you were going to be doing. How dare you come back alive? Maybe if you did your job, this wouldn't have happened.
The kind of the survivor's guilt with that. But that, the Godzilla legend is paired so much with this kind of PTSD with the atomic bomb. What monster is going to come get us now? And so this main character is, for some reason, and they don't explain why. And I'm glad they didn't, show the magician's tricks or anything. But he's pair bonded with Godzilla. It just seems like whatever's going on with him and what he's done, the monster shows up that he has to wrestle with to do it, and it follows where he goes. There's things that are happening. So there, it's not. Again, it's not the big monster island mythos or the center of the earth mythos, or there's another monster that needs to be defeated to bring balance to the harmony. No, it's just this guy is wrestling with a pretty big monster of weight, of guilt, the weight of responsibility, the weight of grief, and how is that going to be handled? And for me, what hit hardest, what smashed the hardest was this idea that it's not that he got out of it or defeated it alone. There's a community there. There are people that he bonded with to help him bring it out of it. And yeah, it's a small boat. It had Jaws feels to it. It's like, yeah, you're gonna need a bigger boat. But it's not about the size of the boat. It's about the people who he's with, who they think through the problems and help bring them out and help give him a spark of hope later on. So that for me, that it had Jaws vibes. It has this other kind of monster vibe. It's just had a different flavor to what we've been used to in Godzilla, and that's focusing in on family and community and friendship and who you bond with. Makes a big difference in how you navigate a world that's very heavy and is filled with a lot of monsters.
Yeah, and it's a lot like reading your Bible for some of this, right? Like you're watching a film that was clearly made for a different culture. Right. It's speaking to issues that maybe we're not dealing with, and we're having to internalize that and say, how do I make sense of this? Because, the challenging this idea that it's not about the individual, we would never even think to challenge that. And when you read your Bible, a lot of times, instead of putting it in your narrative, you're reading this thing that's clearly written to someone else. That's like, what? Why are you saying this? Why are you doing this? And I think what would be interesting, and maybe this is a whole nother episode, comparing some of the American Godzilla films to the Japanese Godzilla films, because they are written towards completely different audiences. Both, I would say, dealing with the aftermath of the atomic bomb. And the American Godzilla films, we're dealing with, what did we do to the world? What did we do to, eco? That's why you get a lot of like eco-terrorist kind of themes in the Godzilla films, because we're thinking of like, have we permanently damaged the earth? Are we the bad guys? Are the kind of questions you're asking in an American Godzilla film. Yeah. In this Godzilla film, you're dealing with, how do you deal with PTSD? How do you deal with the aftermath of your nation being basically wiped out? And man, those are two wildly different messages. And to be like Aristotle for a minute, maybe if we take these messages, we do like the golden meme. It's not all about the individual. It's not about the culture. Maybe there's a sweet middle ground there. The golden mean, maybe it's a moderation, perhaps.
Nice. Nice. Kevin, what theme in this movie? I mean, you watch with your pastor, you coming out, you look at each other after the movie, and you're like, man, what? Yeah, that silence. What did I just watch? I can't believe I'm moved by this. I'm just going to take me a while to process this thing and think through it. And that's why we're getting with friends on this episode to talk about it, because we got to talk about it with friends. What stood out for you, or what smashed you the hardest in terms of themes?
I mean, I mentioned it earlier, and I like everything you guys said, but like looking at the theme of loyalty is when Koichi starts the movie, he feels so much shame and guilt because he feels that he betrayed the government and the service that he was supposed to be loyal to by preserving his own life. And then by the end of the movie, he develops a different kind of loyalty that is more based on, his community, his people, the people that he loves, and he's no longer blindly serving a government or anything, but rather he's acting, and he's willing to sacrifice himself, even though he does survive. He's willing to sacrifice himself by the end because he's fighting for something he genuinely believes in, rather than something he was sort of enlisted into. That made it. And so I really like how the emotional journey of his character coincides with that, and he goes through every emotion. I mean, shame, guilt, grief, vengeance, all these things, and then by the end, his transformation is through hope and love, and it's just so organic and natural. And again, he gives himself permission to survive in the end because he has something to live for.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, the stages of grief aren't necessarily, you check off a box and you're finished with that and you go to the next one. It's more fluid. You hop around all over the place. I tell people all the time, it's not necessarily, a checkbox, and you complete it, you accomplish it, and you move on, and you pass or fail grief. No, it comes out with all kinds of different stages. And so, yeah, I think that's an important thing to say. Like, where is this, and where do you find hope leading forward? Yeah, Christian.
Yeah, I've got two.
Yeah.
Two more. There's plenty more, but I'll focus on these two. The first one is found family. I really enjoy how this film handles that, because especially even in our culture too, sometimes this idea of a family that you just locate on the way in life is not something you really see a lot. And in a Japanese cultural context, this is like, the nuclear family, no pun intended, is not really that much of a thing in that sense that we look at it. But it's like, hey, you're expected to be in this. You're supposed to have the mom, the dad, the kids listen to the dad is supreme. And then we have Koichi and Noriko and Akiko here. None of them are related to one another yet.
Nice.
Out of a love of one another, they became something beyond that, and eventually there is a very good love story here. It's not like the main focus of the film, but it's the two of them dealing with their own issues and actually becoming essentially husband and wife. I tremendously enjoyed that, both of them together. And when she was revealed to be alive, as soon as the letter was happening, I said, thank God. Oh yeah, she is still alive. I enjoyed that, even though she is dealing with the after effects of the radiation more than likely, and man, becoming forgive me for butchering this term, but the Hibakusha, which is technically speaking a survivor of the bomb, which, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there's a huge cultural stigma around all of this because, well, no one really wanted to take care of them. No one really wanted to look at them. They were a reminder of failure. They're a reminder of everything that they weren't able to accomplish. So maybe if there is a sequel to this, they may focus on that with Noriko. But the other thing I wanted to focus on was Dr. Noda, who is one of the other members of this Minesweeper team, who has a lot of regret in his life because of all the technological advances he made for the sake of winning the war that cost a lot of people's lives. And I don't think there's any hints that he was in like Unit 731 or whatever it is, which is like the extreme. We're doing chemical weapons, experimenting on people that would make, Mengele blush. But it gets to me to the point that grief he's holding, everyone in this film has a lot of grief in their life, but how he can use science to reverse the mistakes of science really resonated with me.
That's great. That's great. That you bring up the love story, and I think that was handled well too. It's not like over sexualized. It's not like romantic. It's not like all this stuff. It is surviving together and then bonding with that, and that love, the mutual love for one another, just to want to see the person make another day and live another day, is what brought them together and kept them together, and really what made him hit the ejection button at the end, is leading forward. And so I love that aspect of a different way of a love story of what you would see in reality TV shows or The Bachelor or whatever. Yeah. You know, people like that stuff and geek out on it. No geek shaming, whatever. I'm just saying that this is a different kind of love story in this movie that I think is refreshing to see in a film like this.
I told my parents, I remember after seeing it, because they probably won't watch it because it's not in English, but I remember telling them, like, it was surprisingly wholesome. And there's very few times that, like, usually when I watch a movie, I'll skip the love scenes if I'm at home because I don't want to see that. I don't care about that. It was worth it. You know, like, I was like, I actually would be okay with more of it even. But it was just sweet. Like, honestly, it was sweet. I liked them.
Yeah. Yeah. And as a father of 2 daughters and seeing a little girl and want to take care, it tugged on my heartstrings when it came to that, about being a dad and what it means. And the next generation that comes after you, whatever you're going through, to make the world a better place for the next generation, I think is a big part there, and what you're wrestling with. Good stuff. Other things before we move on to the next one. Anything out there we're leaving out there? I know there's so much people, if you're watching on YouTube or listen later and you're like, why didn't you talk about this thing? It was like, well, because this movie is so much. You could talk about it forever. It could be an ongoing series just talking about this particular movie. Let us know on our social media. Let us know.
I would
share with us. Yeah.
One thing I said, so the theme of forgiveness, because the other thing we haven't mentioned yet is that at the beginning of the movie, on that island when Godzilla first attacks, so Koichi and one other guy survive, and there's a lot of resentment between those characters initially, and they have this journey together. I forget the character's name off the top of my head, but he has he has this resentment toward Koichi for not firing the gun at Godzilla when he first saw him, and views him as a coward initially, and then they realize together that they've just been through this collective trauma, and yes, they're only human, and they are able to see each other as that by the end of the movie. So that was a really cool subplot as well.
Yeah, I wanted to also lean into, because we were talking about forgiveness and forgiveness of self. So this also goes to the love story. Part of what was I really liked about the love story was how much he got in his way. He didn't want to forgive himself, and also his own PTSD, how everything was following him. He didn't want to put her in danger. And I kind of relate to a degree. Like, after my accident, I know I'm brain damaged. I know, different things now. And it was like, it was hard to choose to love someone, because it's kind of like, I'm damaged goods now, right? Like, it's like, do I really want them to be stuck with not the best version of me? And that's a hard thing to struggle with, and to see that kind of put on screen. And it's weird because it's one of those things, like, I feel like maybe that's not for everybody. Maybe not everyone can relate to that particular aspect, but for those who can, man, that was meaningful. Like, that was cool. That was good to see. Really did my heart good, because I'm like, yeah, forgiving yourself. It's a big thing.
Yeah. And so the love story is not just romantic between you and another person, but maybe there's a love story there just with yourself. What is your love story with you, and how you see yourself is a big part of that story too. I think that's a very good point to make out in terms of how do you forgive yourself, but how do you love yourself as well, and see yourself as valuable and as a part of this world, and a part of community and relationships, and a web of relationships that matter. So I think that's a big part of this hero's journey. And this person, he's far from a hero, but there's a journey, there's redemption arc that brings him back. One thing I also want to bring up too is as we're talking about it, like, Godzilla gets bigger and more powerful the more it gets radiated, right? Like, there's a sense of how is this monster growing? And that old Native American folklore, what monster or wolf you're going to feed the most, fear or love, that's just going to get bigger and stronger. And so is there a commentary in this movie about, as much as we fight, as much as we shoot and use these weapons like technology, that Godzilla's only get bigger, because that's the military industrial complex of getting bigger and bigger and bloated and more powerful the more we fight against it, rather than alternative means of maybe it's not fighting fire with fire. Maybe it's not fighting nukes with nukes or bombing the other people because they bombed us, but maybe it's a different kind of a third way of what Jesus would say, turn the other cheek, or sacrifice / loving the other person in a way that they haven't seen before. What do you guys think about that theme?
I'm going to do a silly comment and then bring it back to the serious part of that. Not really silly, more just like this isn't really as much about the theme and more just my own commentary. I thought Godzilla was way scarier when he was smaller. Like when he was able to like actually interact individually with people, that was just more frightening. He was like a bigger T-Rex, and I was like, oh, what is this? Because it wasn't quite a dinosaur. I was like, this is something weird that can move faster because he's not so big, you know? Like it's almost like when it gets so big, it's beyond my ability to pretend like it's real.
Yeah. It becomes something surreal. Yeah.
I was like, wow, this, whatever, like his first appearance, he was smaller. He was going after the people. And I was like, this is way scarier than the legendary films Godzilla. All I have to do for that film is simply not be in a big city. I'm surviving. But yeah, so I don't know. So there was that commentary, but then there's that's why I'm going back to the choose life, you know, the Toby Mac hashtag. But I really like that theme in the movie. You know, a lot of times, especially as American Protestant Christians, that conversation is abortion bad? But choosing life post to that, you know, do we choose war or do we choose life? Do we choose hate? Do we choose love? You know, that kind of thing. And just caring for individuals and people past just them being born, I think a lot of times maybe requires us to find ways that aren't just war all the time. Perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah. Something about that ejection button. You know, it was dishonorable. Bailing on your ship is dishonorable at the beginning of the movie, but at the end, it's one that gives hope and that choosing life. So there's a switch and a flipping of the tables there, a kind of subversion of what that means in terms of the ejection button and what that means for him and his life and how that's changed over the course of the movie and in the midst of the struggle. So there is something about this movie in terms of hope and where you find hope. You know, there -1, there's no hope, and if you don't think you can get lower, you're gonna even go into the negative realm of minus numbers as you go deeper. But as the movie goes on, there's teasing of hope, there's strings of hope, there's lures of hope for this person and the communities and the relationships that he's entangled with. There's your drinking game. Every time I say entangled, take a sip. That leads him. So where does our main character find hope? And then for us personally, where do we? There's many monsters in the world. This is a monster of a year for 2024. There's a lot going on in this world. Where do we find hope that draws us to keep moving forward, to hit that ejection button, to choose life and to live life to its fullest? Christian, we'll start with you first in terms of where does he find hope, and then where do you find hope?
Well, for Koichi, it's family.
Yeah,
it's and realizing that there's something beyond where I think I should be. Like by every right, Koichi should be dead. He should be just another casualty list that some general may have looked at once and then moved on with his life. But instead, he's in a position where there are people who need him, that he's supporting them. And even as much as he doesn't want to admit it, he wants to be with them too and protect them in this strange little found family that is one of the most beautiful parts of the film.
Yeah.
So he finds that. It's like, can I, in good conscience, even at this point, he doesn't know Noriko is alive, can he leave Akiko behind? And he says no. And that's why we get that great moment where when I first saw the ejector seat, the words written in German, I kind of looked over at Joshua in the film. I don't know if I said anything, but I had that realization in my head of, oh, that's probably from like a transfer from the Nazis. And they actually had ejector seats. So he's going to survive this film. And so when it happened, I was like, yes, I was right. But for him, it's like, hey, I have something more to live for. It's not just me wrestling with my guilt, my survivor's complex and guilt over what shouldn't have happened. I should have been a statistic. But because I'm not a statistic, I need to be a man. I need to be the leader of this family I have here and watch over them. And I can't do that if I blow up inside of a kaiju's mouth.
Yeah.
So he finds that hope, that will to live for their sake and for his sake. Now, for me, I mean, easy answer, Jesus. Like, Sunday school answer, Jesus. But there's a reason there's a cliche. There's a reason we go to him when we are in trouble and we feel like there's nothing that can happen to get us out of the situation. It's because he's the only one who can. How many times did Israel cry out to God after causing problems on their own end by worshiping other gods or following their own plans and living in their own pride? And God every single time eventually delivered them. That tells me that's how I should look at him. It's like, hey, no matter how far away I go, no matter how much I get too lost in myself or just too focused on my own pride, or to say, well, I'm never going to be good enough, so why should I bother? There is a hope that exists because of the sacrifice Jesus did for me that he didn't have to do, but he did it anyway because he loves. And if he can love me as bad as I've been, well, maybe I should do the same, not only to myself, but the people around me.
Yeah, I like that no matter how far you get, no matter how minus 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 you get, God will be there. And that understanding of Christ going to the grave or going to rock bottom and even lower into the grave for us to drag and pull us out of it into new life is a fantastic message of good news for those out there. So I'm gonna resist trying to get on my Easter sermon, dust that off and start. But I think you're right. Like there is something about hitting rock bottom that's a wake up call for folks. Not that God causes that, but there is something about rock bottom that is a look in the mirror and go, where can I go from here? And then drawing us hope. Kevin, in terms of seeing the hope in this movie, where do you see hope in the world for you and others, and what keeps you moving and choosing life?
Well, and echoing what Christian said about like in the movie, I think he has like a hesitation to fully love the family at the beginning because he's afraid to, and he can't like we've talked about. He was like this cog in the machine initially, and it's a journey for him just to surrender himself to the love for his family and to the people around him. And it's a really beautiful journey, and I love how the movie handles that. But I definitely agree there that that's where he finds his hope in. And then for me, yeah, I mean, of course, you can Christian said it really well, and I don't want to just like repeat that, but I think other things that are reflective of my faith, like I find hope a lot in stories and in picture, and like that's what a lot of this podcast is about. Is like, I mean, yeah, it's not just these are just fictional stories that entertain us. I like when I'm in my darkest moments, like I like turning to media that I think it has a spiritual component to it that does provide me with solace and can help me better understand myself and the world around me. So I don't think those things are trivial at all. I think like we can use, stories, we can rely on people around us. And that all very much ties into our faith.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you hear a song that resonates with you, poetry, theopoetics, art, stories, the narratives that we follow and read or entertained by, but also give us hope because it resonates with our own story and our condition. That's a fantastic point. And that's why I think there's a kind of timeless aspect to this story of Christ that resonates with the human condition and draws forward. There is a comment up here by Trip Fuller I'm going to share in a little bit. I can't wait to read. But I'll share that in a minute. We'll let Joshua, you share yours, and then I'll share mine, and then we'll throw up Trip's comment up on the feed.
Oh man, am I just sharing where I find hope, or am I supposed to like say the same things that Christian did about the movie because he was right?
Well, he summed it up. That's exactly where I was.
He did great.
Things in the movie, but if there's something in the movie you want to share about where you think where it's saying you can find hope and what brought him out of -1 into like life, where you find that movie, but also in your own life too. I'm
trying to decide how transparent I want to be. I'm going to be pretty transparent because hope's important. So first, echo everything that Christian said, a little more detailed. I love the part of the movie where in order to provide for his not girlfriend, not wife, and his not baby, he of all jobs, he finds a job where they're going to go looking for mines because he doesn't value his life at all. He has no hope. And it's in that job that he starts making these relationships and these friends. So when he has given up hope, that is where he finds the hope. And I was like, I love that. I love it. Especially again, this is something I can relate to. I remember so many times. So whenever I had my car accident, when I was unconscious, I had a dream, and I kind of felt like I had this option to go on ahead or to come back. And it was kind of you have a ministry to do. Do you want to go help people? Do you want to come back? And I had that dream, and I felt like I chose to come back. I came back. Maybe that was real. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But I know I've had plenty of times afterwards because, I live with this chronic pain. I live with all this stuff that I was like, I can't even think as clearly as I used to. Like there's these even math equations I used to be able to do that I can't do now. And there's several times that I revisited the place the accident happened and said, God, just let it happen again. I'm done. I'm over it. And I've been to that point, right, where I've completely given up hope. And guys, this is my cheesy romantic story now, I guess. You know who took my place at my job while I was out? I came back. I found the person who took my place there. It was my wife. That's how I met her, because someone had to fill in for me. And it's just one of those times where it's like the thing that took the hope, right? The time I was the most hopeless, that's where I found love. That's where I found hope. That's where I found a reason outside of just, hey, I need to do these things because the church told me I need to help the world. So I'm going to help the world and check off my checklist. It's like, no, I found reasons to live because it was taken away from me. So man, it was just so relatable. And when I think of like, personally, I find hope in those kind of things, like the people around me, not to support our show fully. I always like to plug our show in, but like I find hope when I'm in the group text, it will says, man, Christian, I'm just so glad you're part of this team after listening to that episode. I find hope when, Elizabeth is like, hey, I don't know if anybody else would understand. So I wanted to share with you guys, look at this thing I just got, how geeky it is. And like our little group chats in our team here, the relationships we were able to build, I'm like, I find hope there, right? I find hope. We're doing the whole church podcast. I interview all these people from across, all kind of different types of church. And I'm like, oh, this guy's going to come out and be like, you don't need church unity because the Bible says what the Bible says. And instead what he says is, I think the Bible says this pretty plainly, but I could be wrong. And I'm like, man, I find hope when someone says they can be wrong. I find hope listening to these obscure Christian podcasts that don't get a lot of downloads. I like checking them out sometimes because sometimes they're talking about politics. I'm like, oh man, here we go. And instead I hear nuanced, thoughtful stuff. I find hope in just little things. Right now, I think politics is a big one, right? That's where we feel the most hopeless in America, according to polls. But you know what I see 2 years ago, Americans cared more than ever about our politics on a small level. And I think as that's starting to change, we're going to see the big picture change more and more. And right now, maybe it looks bad, but it's because of that bad stuff that people are caring more about the little stuff that I think is going to turn everything around. So that's where I see hope. In the darkest, like I'm trying to think of that Kingdom Hearts quote at the end of Kingdom Hearts 1, where it's just darkness in the Kingdom of Hearts, but then you see the one light and it's the King Mickey with his Keyblade. And you're like, oh yeah, that's right. In the darkest dark, that's where Jesus is standing, waiting for us as the light in the darkness. And yeah, sorry, that was a bit of a tangent.
That was good. I'm glad you're transparent, sharing that story, because I think it's important for people to hear where you're coming from and what you've wrestled with and not. And yeah, it's not like we share that all the time with folks, but yeah, to share that out, I think is important. And your thought of finding hope in unexpected places is a big part of this movie. He went thinking he was going to find a job and just to do a job, and let's find another way to die or get rid of my life. But hope does emerge, and that's where I'll share it. Like for me, that's where I saw hope in the movie, is the found family and the community around him, but also my own life, my family, but also found family with you guys, with friends that I have had since elementary school, Sunday school, vacation Bible school, that were in youth group together, that we got kicked out of Sunday school class. We're still best friends and text and talk through the week, and we've all gone in our different ways, but have our own families and still chat. There's that friendships that emerge out of opportunities and doors through podcasts. And opportunities for ministry that keep drawing you that there is something larger than yourself, that God has claimed you and that you are beloved no matter what, and is drawing you into a moral arc of the universe that is bending towards justice and love. So yeah, can you believe a monster movie like Godzilla is drawing out this stuff out of us to talk about it? And that's exactly what this stuff does. Yeah. I want to share, we have a comment here from Trip, who suggested that we do this episode. It's only appropriate that he does it. So yeah, hope first emerged in the felt obligation to protect a kid, animated by his guilt, but it's transformed as he came to see himself in the pictures of his chosen daughter. He started to trust how she saw him and got the courage to seize life again. Yeah. So
Well
looking through others and seeing how they see you can help you animate your own life. And then there's another one. Oh man, look at here. We've always said Tripp is a man of impressive sentences and words. And here you go. To fail as a kamikaze pilot is a denial, betrayal of the religious, political, cultural system he was born into. When Eldridge and I discussed it, he pointed out that in the movie, he is discovering a new frame of meaning for life post deconstruction. That made me think of how sometimes he lost hope because we lose hope because we believe it's attached to our vision of the ultimate and forget that our vision is just that, ours, human, finite, and God is definitely beyond any human account of things. Woo, there we go. Mic drop. If I had a mic drop,
Godzilla roar.
I would. Oh, here we go. Here's for you, Tripp. Good discussion, everyone. Yeah, we could just talk about this more and more and more. And we hope that you will see this movie. If you haven't, man, if you've listened to this entire podcast and haven't seen the movie, sorry for all the spoilers, but it would still be worth it. And so yeah, let us know what we missed or discussions that perhaps we missed in there, because it's a deep movie. All right. So if we're going to rank this movie, I think, we're getting late. We're not going to do recommendations when we're live. We're just going to, would we recommend this movie to a friend? And then how would we rank this movie? Kevin, we're going to you first.
Oh, this is like 10 out of 10 for me. You have to see it on the big screen. And there's also, it's still playing in theaters right now, but also they're re-releasing it in black and white toward the end of this month, which I would see that too. I mean, it's great in color as well, but I would kind of see both versions. But regardless, you have got to see it on the big screen.
There's your recommendation. There's your recommendation. Go see it on a big screen. Don't watch it on your phone. If you watch it on your phone, I kick you out of. No, I can't. I can't kick you out of this group.
Try not to judge, but yeah. And I realize, like, not everyone can get to theaters. It's okay, but just if you can get it on a big enough screen, that it is much. You'll just get more out of it that way.
Yeah. Christian, where are you staying on this?
For frame of reference, my favorite Godzilla movie of all time is Destroy All Monsters. Not because it's a good film, but because it's a crossover team-up movie, and that appeals to me as a person who loves crossovers and team-ups in my comics and my movies. But as far as actual, when Joshua and I, first the film was ending, we were watching the credits, I turned over him and I said something to the effect of, Joshua, we just watched cinema. And this is a 10 out of 10 for me. I was worried, this is just recency bias, but I've had plenty of time to think since then. I love what this movie has to say about the themes. I love that we actually got a human story here, because normally I couldn't care less in a Godzilla film. This made me care about the human characters. This made me actually want to see them kill Godzilla, which is what I almost never want in a Godzilla movie. I want him to survive so we can have sequels and he can fight another monster and have goofy, kooky adventures. But no, this is the exact opposite of that, and it works. Yeah. I love this film. If you haven't seen it, watch it when it comes out in black and white.
I plan to see it in black and white, but I think you'd have both. I think that's the cool thing, that this is such a big franchise, kind of like Star Wars. You have different versions, comic books, superheroes. You have the series, you have the dark, you have the vulgar, the rated R, but you have the light stuff too, the stuff that you go have fun with. They can sometimes draw and hold up a mirror to draw stuff out of you just as much. So yeah, I think that's good. Joshua, where are you going to, I'm nervous because this is the guy with bad opinions. I'm scared where he's going to rank this thing. Even his ranking system is a little off, but I'm gonna trust him that he's gonna make the right choice here. Joshua, how do you recommend this film, and would you recommend it for a friend?
I mean, definitely recommend it for a friend. I don't think it has to be on the big screen. I feel as though there was not as much monster stuff as like legendary monsters. You probably good watching it on a TV. Don't watch it on your phone. Don't do it on a phone.
Okay.
Good. All right. You save yourself a little bit there, but
but if you have a TV that's like at least 60 inches or more, you're fine. It's fine.
I'm still going to disagree. Make
sure you have a good sound bar though. You need the sound effect at least. Yeah. If I'm rating it against other Godzilla films, I'd probably put it at a 10. If I'm rating against like monsters in general or horror in general, I'm probably like 8. Put a solid 8. it was a really, really good movie. I loved it, but I definitely can think of monster movies and stuff that I liked more. Yeah.
Okay. That is one of the highest things I've heard you rank, though. An 8 is up there. A Joshua 8 is like a 20 in Will's book. So that's pretty good stuff. I would highly recommend this to a friend. I'm definitely going to see it in black and white when it comes to theater. Go see it in the theater. That's my recommendation. Don't watch it on your phone or TV. But if you can't get to the theater, you have to watch it on TV. I fully understand that too. We understand that. No geek shaming. I'll also recommend comics, Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Going there with heroes, good depiction of the Justice League and Superman and Batman's care for Superman and how much he loves him. You'll see a lot of emotion out of Batman, but boy, man, his care for Superman, this is pretty cool. So yeah, I will give this thing a complete 10. It is a masterpiece in how you do film and cinema and directing and human story and monsters and special effects, and they even have a boat in there and water and like there's so much stuff there. And so I'm curious if it will win an Oscar, what kind of award it's going to get. Foreign film, regular film, favorite music.
Yeah.
You do you award shows, Kevin? Do you have a prediction of whether this is going to be an Oscar?
I don't think it will make like an Oscar, but like it's gotten a lot of like pop. It has been up for other awards and stuff. I don't know exactly how it works with getting something like this that. It could, I guess, be up for a foreign category. But I pay somewhat like when it comes to award shows, I like seeing actors and filmmakers that deserve it get the recognition. But overall, I don't lend a ton of amount of like credibility to them. They're primarily popularity contests, but I like when underdogs come out and win. It's cool, but I don't, but regardless, I don't really care if this gets that kind of recognition. I just like that it's beloved by everyone who's seen it.
Yeah. Can I do a couple of recommendations?
Did I cut you off with recommendations? Yeah.
No.
I didn't know you were doing recommendations.
Depends.
Listen, since you mentioned the Godzilla versus Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong, I don't know. I get the order out of order.
Yeah.
We got it right for Comic Book Ketchup. That's what matters. If you're on our YouTube, go to Comic Book Ketchup, check that out. That's not my recommendation. A Godzilla closer to this Godzilla Here There Be Dragons, those comics, I love them. Godzilla fights a lobster kaiju at one point. So much fun for me. And also what I've been geeking out on, Christian, last time me and him hung out, we played a game, Killer Bunnies and the Journey to Jupiter. Fantastic game. So much fun. And I found out that there's kind of some people petitioning to get the other expansions done because they never finished the game. And so the more people care about it and play it and do this stuff, the more likely I am to have a finished version of that game. So please play Killer Bunnies and Journey for Jupiter. It will take you many hours, but it's fun.
There you go. Are the bunnies like kaiju monsters that come out of the water and raise the booty?
We're in space this time. We're in space this time with bunnies. But there's Star Wars bunnies, Star Trek bunnies, Firefly bunnies, all kinds of weapons.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I can talk over the outro music or not. Does that work? Am I talking over the outro music? Probably, but hey, it's a part of the podcast. And we're like, oh, Christian has a couple things. He's doing bunny ears. I don't know what.
Definitely that too. If you want a movie with similar themes, that is also a Godzilla movie, check out Godzilla. Goodness gracious, why would you do this to me, screen? Stop that. Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah. I know it's Ghidorah. Don't at me. I pronounce it Ghidorah. Giant Monsters All Out Attack, which is Godzilla possessed by World War II soldiers and forced to kill Japan. It is pretty dang good.
What?
Yeah.
All right.
And then also for a manga side of things, that's also getting an anime soon. Kaiju number 8. Japan fighting off kaiju threats. Pretty dang good.
Yeah, I think a friend of mine shared that with me. Lee shared that with me. That's good stuff. Man, Kevin, Christian, Joshua, doing this and talking to you guys is what keeps me going and gives me hope and hits the eject button to keep going in life. Again, guys, the music's getting louder. It's playing me off the stage. I got to keep talking. Smash the like button, follow us, share with your friends, all that good stuff. Man, we loved hanging out with you guys, and I love talking over this outro music and making Joshua have to edit this. The podcast, I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know this.
Hi, my name is TJ. I'm here to tell you about the Systematic Geekology shop. That's where we post all of our merch. It is hosted on Creator Spring, and we have a ton of really cool merch, mostly clothing. We have hats, extra soft t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies, and more. Our hosts wear them all the time. It's actually super comfy. We have glassware, mugs, which everybody loves a good mug. Fill out your cupboard. Get rid of some old ones, which is the part that I never do. That's why I have too many cups. We have cloth bags, posters, and it's really stuff we like to put our icons on there. We like to put quotes, things we've come up with, and it's cool. It's a cool way, and a lot of it is pretty subtle too, to show support for one of your favorite shows. And my personal favorite is actually our SG Dad Cap, which I haven't been reluctant to buy it because now I have to wear hats at work. And then I get tired of wearing hats, but it's really cool. It's really understated. It is our logo right here. And then it says Systematic Geekology on the back. It's great. It's a really good hat. We have a few of them floating around. Check it out. And if we could all just rock the SG Dad Cap in public, I think that'd be pretty sweet.
If you love our show, you can follow the whole network in a single feed on Spotify at Anazao Ministry Podcast or the network page on Apple Podcasts. There you'll find shows like The Homely, The Whole Church Podcast, My Seminary Life, Let Nothing Move You, Dummy for Theology, The Bible After Hours, as well as mine and my husband's show, The Clydes, where my husband Taylor and I go through weekly discussions in a devotional conversational method to help us all get closer to one another and God.